California is facing a significant fuel crisis as two major refineries prepare to shut down in 2026. The Phillips 66 refinery in the Los Angeles area closed at the end of December 2025, and Valero's Benicia facility is scheduled to close in April 2026. Together, these two refineries represent approximately 17% of California's total refining capacity. Economic analyses from UC Davis predict that by August 2026, when the full impact of these closures materializes, California gas prices could increase by 1.21 per gallon above current market prices. Industry experts, including Andy Lipow, president of Lipow Oil Associates, warn that California prices could surge past $5 per gallon throughout 2026, with some forecasts predicting potential spikes to $8 per gallon or higher during supply disruptions. The refinery closures are driven by multiple factors, including California's stringent environmental regulations, high compliance costs associated with the low-carbon fuel standard, expensive requirements for special fuel blend formulations, and declining long-term gasoline demand due to electric vehicle adoption. No new refineries have been built in California in decades, and the regulatory environment has made it economically challenging for companies to justify continued operations or new investments in traditional refining infrastructure. California's unique fuel requirements make it difficult to simply import gasoline from other states. The state mandates special fuel blends to meet air quality standards, which means California cannot easily substitute standard gasoline from elsewhere in the United States. The state must either produce these specialized blends domestically or import them from specific international sources, both options that come with significant cost premiums. As domestic refining capacity shrinks, California will become increasingly dependent on imports, leaving the market vulnerable to global supply chain disruptions, shipping delays, and international market volatility. Current gas prices in California average approximately $4.21 per gallon. As of mid-January 2026, already the second highest in the nation after Hawaii. This represents an 18-cent decrease from the same time last year, but experts warn this downward trend will reverse sharply once the full impact of the refinery closures takes effect. The national average currently sits at $2.84 per gallon, meaning California drivers already pay nearly $1.40 more per gallon than the national average. This price gap is expected to widen significantly throughout 2026. The economic implications extend beyond just the cost of filling up personal vehicles. Diesel prices, critical for commercial trucking and agricultural operations, could potentially reach $10 per gallon during shortage periods. This would cascade through the economy, increasing costs for food transportation, grocery prices, and essentially all consumer goods that depend on truck delivery. Small businesses operating delivery fleets would face crushing cost increases. Rural communities and low-income households would be disproportionately affected, as they often have longer commuting distances and fewer alternatives to personal vehicle transportation. The situation also affects neighboring states. Oregon and Washington, which rely partially on California refineries for their fuel supplies, may also experience price increases, though not as dramatic as California itself. The entire West Coast fuel market is interconnected, and disruptions in California's supply chain create ripple effects throughout the region. California's low-carbon fuel standard, implemented under Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and expanded since then, requires fuel producers to reduce the carbon intensity of transportation fuels over time. While this policy has environmental benefits, it adds immediate costs to fuel production and creates additional compliance burdens that have contributed to refinery closures. The state is also moving toward banning new fossil fuel vehicle sales by 2035 and investing heavily in electric vehicle infrastructure and alternative fuels, including hydrogen. These long-term policy goals create market uncertainty that discourages investment in traditional oil and gas infrastructure. Governor Gavin Newsom's office has pushed back against some of the more extreme price predictions, calling certain forecasts speculative and questioning the methodology behind projections of $8 to $10 per gallon gasoline. State officials note that California gas prices are currently lower than 1 year ago and point to improvements in vehicle fuel efficiency that have reduced per capita gasoline consumption in the state. However, the fundamental supply constraint created by losing 17% of refining capacity remains a serious concern that even state officials acknowledge will create upward price pressure. Some policy options exist that could potentially mitigate price increases. These include temporarily rolling back the state excise tax, delaying implementation of additional low-carbon fuel standard requirements, modifying cap and trade regulations, or changing fuel blend specifications to allow more imports from out-of-state refineries. However, each of these options faces political challenges and potential conflicts with California's climate goals. The state could also create strategic fuel reserves or provide direct consumer relief payments, but these would be expensive and politically contentious. For California drivers, the message is clear: prepare for significantly higher fuel costs throughout 2026 and beyond. The immediate impact will be felt starting in spring 2026 as the second refinery closes and summer driving season approaches. Experts recommend that consumers consider fuel efficiency as a major factor in vehicle purchasing decisions, explore carpooling and public transportation options where available, and budget for substantially higher transportation costs in the coming year.